Hey everybody, Jake here from Bearded Gear, and it's full review time. This is my custom kitchen knife from CJ Miller of Miller Knifeworks, and I've been keeping it in this pouch that he sent it to me in because I don't just want to put this in my crappy knife block. I don't want to just toss it in a drawer or anything like that. So I've literally, every time that I've used this so far, I have hand washed it immediately and put it right back in here after hand drying it and making sure that it's perfect. This thing is ridiculously awesome. So the pouch that he sends it in has come in super handy. I'll probably eventually, I don't know, maybe I'll put like something cool on the wall where I can like borderline hang it on the wall, although my kitchen in this apartment is not fancy anyways. This would step it up a notch though. All right, so let's talk about this knife. This is my first nice kitchen knife, also my first custom kitchen knife. It is a ridiculously fantastic, fully custom built kitchen knife, like I said, from Miller Knifeworks. The way that this knife worked out for me, CJ Miller, who has become a friend at this point. We literally, I think we've talked just about every single day, just about knives in general. He's going down the rabbit hole of collecting. Anyway, he reached out to me because he makes these, he makes some fixed blades, and he was interested in sending me something to check out and review. And I was open to that as well. I thought that was a cool idea. So basically the way that we set it up at first was he was going to send me this, and if I liked it, I could work it out with him to purchase it from him, but there was no obligation to do so. I was welcome to just check it out and then send it back. And pretty immediately, once I received it, it became abundantly clear that I was not going to be sending it back to him. So I ended up actually working out a trade with him. So I traded him a TRM Shadow for this, which he was really happy about because those, even now, are very, very, very difficult to get. And I was lucky to have one, and so it ended up working out. We were both happy. But these, if you're having them built, I believe what he typically charges on a build like this is about $350. That said, they're custom, so it may be different depending on handle materials or, I don't know, whatever you have him do. So let's talk about how this knife is built real quick, and then from there we'll go over my impressions and my thoughts, and we'll talk about my conclusions on this knife, if you will. So, in terms of the build, let's start at the handle, because this thing's pretty big to keep the whole thing in frame. This is crosscut micarta, which looks really cool. It gives it an especially like kind of wood grainy type look and texture compared to typical micarta, which is normally like, I don't know, looks like fabric, right? And it's finished really well. It's kind of polished. So it does have like the slightest bit of texture, although it's really quite slick and smooth. I feel like I'm reflecting. There's like Mother's Day balloons over there. I'm filming this right before Mother's Day. But anyway, yeah, so really, really nice, well-finished micarta. And then under the micarta, which is natural micarta on the outside, you can see there's, I believe, if I remember correctly, it's black micarta that's set under it. I guess it could be G10, but no, that's definitely micarta. I'm looking at it, and it is 100%. So yeah, got natural micarta stacked on black micarta, and then you can see the tang is polished all the way through. This is obviously a full tang knife because you can see it all the way through. So really, really gorgeous handle. The handle shape we're going to talk about, but man, he did a great job with all of these angles and everything to make it just not only look good, but it feels great too. So we're going to go over all that, but that brings us to the blade. He did this one in Nitro V for me, and I am a fan of Nitro V, especially after using this as much as I have in the kitchen so far. I am impressed with it. I dig the way he's done this Nitro V, and he did this all in-house, so I'm really extra impressed with that. You'll notice on here the grind is different from maybe what you're accustomed to. I don't know, it's new for me, but this is what's called a diamond grind. So the way that he grinds these out is he does a full flat. So his initial grind, I guess you'll say, is full flat all the way up to the spine. This is also kind of a tapered toward the tip, distal taper, if you will. So he does a distal taper towards the tip and then a full flat grind. And then he takes it to, I guess, like a wheel or whatever, and he grinds in this big hollow into the full flat grind. So you have the same profile that you would with a full flat grind, except then there's more material removed up here on both sides, creating this kind of fuller. It's a hollow, really, that takes up about 50% of the blade. And the purpose of that is food release. So on really small stuff, if you're cutting in the kitchen, that frankly for me does next to nothing. But if you're cutting things that are large, like, I don't know, I've cut a lot of stuff with this at this point, but say I'm cutting like potatoes into big slices, or even just cutting apple, or I've done a sweet potato. What else have I done? I know I cut some watermelon with it, and I've done a bunch of stuff, but anything that's basically as tall as the blade or taller where you're cutting it, if it gets to this section, it helps it dramatically to fall off of the blade rather than being stuck to it. And that's one of those things that, like, I hear talked about from people talking about kitchen knives, is like, how's the food release? Like, I don't know, that's not really a thing that has ever mattered to me all that much, because I've never had really nice knives in the kitchen where that is like, they all suck at it basically. But this actually, it works quite well. Again, if you're cutting really short stuff that's only as tall as this section of the grind anyways, yeah, it's going to stick on there because that's still a flat grind. But if it gets up to that pocket, that hollow, it automatically releases whatever you're cutting, which is really, really nice. And it keeps from, I don't know, having stuff just like stack up and then be awkward, and then you've got stuff all over the board. It kind of helps what you're cutting stay where you want it to be on the cutting board, which I really like. You'll notice I'm also passing this to my left hand a lot. For in the kitchen, I cut with my left hand. That's just something about me. I'm left-handed for a number of things. I write left-handed, I shoot left-handed, I eat left-handed, and even though with folders I almost always use them in my right hand, in the kitchen I pass the knife to my left hand. It's what I do. I can cut right-handed in the kitchen, I just prefer to use my left. So it's also completely ambidextrous. It's a fixed blade, it ought to be, but it is. Alright, so yeah, Nitro V, diamond grind, really, really thin behind the edge. I mean, stupid thin. It's just, and it stays stupid thin behind the edge. Even up here where the grind comes upward toward the tip, because it's distal tapered and the blade tang, or the spine narrows as you get toward the tip, it's still stupid thin all the way up here. So really, really thin. It makes the whole thing also incredibly light. This thing is like over 13 inches long and weighs like 5 ounces. It's really, really light. And it feels, I don't know, like obviously that's one of the reasons why I'm not typically a super specs heavy channel, is like 5 ounces. What does that feel like? I mean, unless you're really, really used to comparing weights of objects in your hands, that's probably not the most meaningful information. But like, in terms of what I can convey of the sensation of holding this knife and using it, it feels remarkably lightweight and just like agile almost. I don't know. It's a very cool sensation using this blade. So yeah, that's what we're working with materials wise. We've talked a little bit about the diamond grind, but yeah, let me just reiterate how much stuff I've done with this. I've had it now for realistically probably actually about a month, maybe even slightly more than that, maybe 5 weeks. And ever since I got it, it has been my go-to kitchen knife. I have used it a ton. I have now stropped it one time on my Renegade EDC strop, and it's going super strong. Frankly, when I stropped it, I probably didn't even quite need to yet, but I just wanted to, because I don't know, I feel like I have a little bit more of a connection with a knife when I'm semi-responsible, at least, for the edge that's on it. But yeah, I've cut salmon, chicken, beef, like steaks. I've cut, we don't really do pork. My wife doesn't eat pork, so I haven't done anything like that here. But I've done tons of apples. I've done a pineapple. I've done at least one watermelon. I shouldn't say I've done before all these things. I've cut each of these things. I have cut a bunch of lemons, oranges, a lot of apples. We go through a ton of Honeycrisp apples are all we eat in this house. If you haven't tried a Honeycrisp apple, F you. Just kidding. You should. They're great. What else? A lot of vegetables, tons of broccoli, asparagus, zucchini, cucumbers. Are cucumbers a fruit or a vegetable? I feel like they're a fruit. Tomatoes. So, I mean, just like every density of things that you would cut in the kitchen, basically, I have cut with this. I've cut garlic. I mean, I don't know. I've done all of my typical cooking, which I actually cook a pretty decent amount. My wife is not a fan of cooking, nor is she talented at it. And I don't even have to worry about her hearing me say that because she will admit it. And I've always liked cooking. I feel like I'm pretty good at it. I just enjoy it. And so I cook a lot, at least a few times a week. I'm preparing like dinner at home. And yeah, this thing, I haven't felt like it's been lacking or incapable at anything yet. Even what's been interesting for me as well, sometimes in the past when I've been reaching into the knife block to grab a knife to prepare food with, I have found that for certain things I've wanted to reach for a smaller knife because you just get better control and all that. And certainly that's still true, but I've just been using this for everything, like regardless of the size of what I'm cutting, I've been reaching for this, which this is probably one of the biggest knives I have in the kitchen, if not the biggest. And everything that I've gone to cut with it, it hasn't felt cumbersome. It also hasn't ever felt too small. It's just so freaking versatile in that way. And I like that. I like that if this was the only knife in my kitchen, I wouldn't really feel limited. So I don't know if that's... I'm not the biggest expert in like kitchen knives, chef knives. I literally grabbed... So I have a Spyderco chef knife that I got at their factory second sale this year, and it's dirty and in the sink, so I didn't want to clean it before filming this. But before I got that Spyderco knife, this is what I was using. This is like a KitchenAid knife block knife, right? And in that knife block, there's like a little paring knife, there's a bread knife, there's like a santoku, I hope I'm saying that right. There's a few knives, and then there's like steak knives at the bottom, right? And this, for me, was honestly like decent. I don't hate this knife. I'm not going to throw it away now. But this is not even playing the same game that this Miller custom knife is. It's like not in the same conversation, right? Yeah, this just says it's made of German steel. I don't even know what it is. It does have a distal taper, which is interesting, and it's fairly thin behind the edge, but the edge retention, not even remotely close to what's on that knife, and just the sensation of using this, the balance, everything feels so much less refined. It's like not even close. And same thing, frankly, with that Spyderco knife, which when I got the Spyderco knife, that was a big step up. And this just makes it seem silly. It goes in circles around it. It's kind of bonkers how much this knife is just a pleasure to use. And it's made me, even though I already really, really enjoyed cooking and being in the kitchen, it's made me more excited about it every time, because I don't know, it's like when my wife gets a package and I have a cool knife in my pocket, I want to jump up and open it, right? Because it's an excuse to use my knife. And I already liked cooking, but I didn't have like a knife in the kitchen that made me excited to get in there. And knives are like the primary thing that gets me excited in life. That's a weird thing to say. Again, this is an interesting one. But having a knife like this in the kitchen to get in there and use just made me so much more excited to get in there and use it. And so I think I shared this in my first impressions, but I think not only can I recommend this knife if you are into cooking, but I think it would probably be true. Can't speak from experience because this isn't me, but I would assume what would happen if you aren't into cooking and you got one of these, you'd probably find yourself being a little more okay with being in the kitchen and doing the cooking. Because it's just so much fun to have an incredible, nice, custom, cool knife to use. And cooking is like the greatest excuse to do a ton of cutting. And I don't know, maybe that's part of why I've always liked cooking, is because I've also always been into knives, and so it's fun to just get in there and cut a bunch of stuff for me. I get some weird thrill out of like being a little bit OCD sometimes about cutting things perfectly uniform. And then it's also kind of like an artistic exercise in the kitchen when you're putting things together and you're riffing on a recipe, and like all that stuff blends together. But the use of a knife is so central to what's happening in the kitchen 90% of the time. And it also makes me mad at myself for waiting this long to get something like this. So yeah, I can't recommend this knife enough. It's just fantastic through and through. The ergos in hand, for me, my goodness, they're phenomenal. My buddy Kyle, DTOM Knives and Gear, just got one of these as well, and he has bigger hands than I do, and he was also letting me know that he really, really likes this handle and these ergos for him. So I don't think that's specific to my hand. I think it's just a really good handle. The weight, the balance, the feel of this blade, the sharpness, everything has been incredible to use. And it's gorgeous, and it looks really good, and it makes me feel happy that I treated myself to something like this, you know? And it's also like, it's so justifiable. Now that I've got one, the amount of money I have in folding knives is insane to most people, and it should be. There's people who have way more expensive collections than I do. It's all relative, but the number of $350+ folders that I have is probably too many. And yet it was hard for me all along to justify getting a kitchen knife that costs that much, which I use. I've used this more than any folder over the past month that I've had it, because I'm using it every day in the kitchen. And my folders I revolve through, and when I cut with them, it's like a couple little things, unless I'm just trying to do some testing. But in the kitchen, again, it's like the ultimate excuse to be doing a bunch of cutting every day. And so, I don't know, it just seems so much like a no-brainer to me to have something like this, especially if you're a knife guy. I love it. So, now the somewhat unfortunate part, CJ is moving right now, and so his books are closed for a little bit. As soon as he gets to the new place and gets his shop set up, then he's going to be right back to the races making these and other knives again. So hopefully that goes quickly and smoothly for him, because yeah, I think a lot of people should be trying stuff like this. And I'd imagine he'll probably work with you if you're doing a custom build with him to pick handle materials or finishing, or I don't know. Talk to the guy. He's really, really cool. I can say that because I talk to him all the time. But I am stoked that I have this. And this is like, not only has it just like changed the kitchen for me, but it also feels really cool because I like the maker now. And that's a big part of a custom knife. And knowing that he's a cool dude. And he, I think, literally just officially got out of the military, has been in the military for a long time. He's now kind of entering the private sector, but he's a cool veteran, like really down to earth, but also probably like I'd imagine he's kind of a badass. I haven't met him in person, but like I like the guy. And getting a custom knife, I'm learning more and more as time goes on, is so much about the maker. So yeah, take it from me, he's a cool dude, but also go talk to him yourself about one of these knives, and you'll probably find the same things that I have about him. Anyway, rather than continuing to ramble, I'm just going to put a bow on it and say, I love this. I think it's great. I don't know if this is going to open some like rabbit hole for me to go down of a bunch of different kitchen knives. Maybe. For the moment, I feel pretty content and happy though. I am thrilled with this one, and because it feels like it does everything in the kitchen, I'm not in a rush to try something else. But I also like, man, I waited too long to do something like this. This is so ridiculously nice and well made, and yeah, it's just great. So I guess that'll be it. This is the Miller Knifeworks Meleia, and it is fantastic, and I really, really love it. So I'm going to link down below to Miller Knifeworks so you can check them out. And yeah, thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you on the next one.